Hey everybody, it's Amy Stapleton from Chattables. Wanted to give you a quick demo on that. But once you're ready to start using Expresso, you go to expresso.chattables.com. Now, I'm already logged in. When you first go to Expresso, you will see a login button, and you're going to want to press that, and in the pop-up, you're going to log in with your Amazon account information. So the same email address and password that you use to log into Amazon, and that will log you into Expresso. And you'll be able to save your work, and we can then make it available on Storyteller Cafe if we decide to publish it. All right, so it's going to be completely blank when you come in here. You'll see these two orange bars, and you're going to want to enter a series title and a story title to get started off. Now, you may only be writing one story, but that's okay. We store everything and manage it according to series in our database. So just come up with a title for your series and then a title for your story. They can be the same if you want them to. The next thing that you might want to do, or you can come back and do it later, is create a very brief description of the series and a brief description of the story. We call those log lines. You're going to put those in here, and that way we'll have one of the characters read out that log line, and the listener will be able to get an idea of what the story is about so that they can decide if they want to hear it or not. Okay, and when you're done with all that, you'll actually be able to save the story. So make sure you see this Save Story button before you really get started, because otherwise you're not logged in properly. Okay, so this left-hand panel is going to have everything that you need for your story, and you will also see the episodes that are associated with it. Right, and we can add additional episodes by just clicking on the Add Episode button. I'm not ready for this one yet, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete it. Right, and then this main panel, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be working on the content for the specific episode itself. All right, so this is where you can add story elements by just clicking on one of the blocks here. This is a story element. I can also select which character from the cafe, either Alex, Madison, Lily, or Colin, that I want to be speaking this particular block. All right, maybe I start with the block where Alex is talking, and then I have another block perhaps where Madison is talking. Right, and then I can sort of, keep a view of my entire episode by just looking at these particular blocks. Perhaps then I want to add a question. Madison is going to ask the listener something, and this is where I can write the question, and then I can write the response. This is where the interactivity comes in. If the listener responds with something like a yes, then I'm going to create a response for that, and if they respond with something more like a no, then I'm going to create a response for that. Okay, and I can also do an open question where I can ask something more open-ended, which is not something to be answered with a yes or no. In that case, I'm not going to be trying to understand what they said. I'm just going to move on with the story, with a story block, and try to make sure that I say something that makes sense based on whatever they might have said. Okay, so again, all of this is outlined both in the Expresso writing guide as well as in our writing for Storyteller Cafe. All right, so when you're finished adding all the blocks for your episode, that you can then add another episode, and then you get started with it over here. And when you're done with all that, at some point you're going to want to save the story. You will be prompted also to save the story in between, so you don't need to worry too much about that, but it is important to save your work. Okay, so let me show you what it really looks like. I'm going to give you a real example. I'm going to select this I have a lot of stories in here. I'm going to select Crimes from the Flying Goose. So I'll say Choose Series. This is already stored in the database. So once you've saved your work, you'll be able to do it the same way here. I'm going to say Choose Series. It's going to load in the series Crimes from the Flying Goose, and you will see that I actually have 3 stories associated with that series. So I'm going to pick the first one, The Missing Schoolgirl. I'm going to load that story. Now you'll see I get this warning message because I've been already editing some things that we've just been talking about, and it's going to say, hey, if you load this story, it's going to overwrite what you were just doing. But that's okay, because I was just, playing around, so I'm going to say that's fine. Yes, I'm going to overwrite that, and it's going to load in the story, The Missing Schoolgirl. So you can see what it looks like when you have filled in the log line for the series and for the story. You've got the upsell message. I have like 5 episodes associated with this particular story. Go to the first one, and you'll see here I start out with a story block where Alex is greeting the listener, and then Madison chimes in, and then Alex says something else, and then Madison says something else, and then Alex, and then finally Alex asks the listener a question based on how they respond. He's going to say something different. All right, and then the story continues on. Now, one last thing let me show you before I finish this little overview is that you can actually use this play button along these blocks so that you can hear how the voice, the synthetic voice, is going to be will sound when they say this particular content of this block. So let's give it a try.
Hi there, First Name. Welcome to the series, Crimes from the Flying Goose.
Okay, so that sounds pretty good. And you'll also notice that this first name is the variable that you can type in here in case you want the listener to address the character to address the listener by their first name. And this comes in really handy. So this, when the story is actually, broadcast to the listener, we'll take that information out of the database and we'll put the listener's name in there. So if they were talking to me, then Alex would say, "Hi there, Amy. Welcome to the series Crimes from the Flying Goose." So I always recommend that you go through and you listen to how these different things they sound, because sometimes you want to make little adjustments in what you've written because the voices don't always say things exactly like you might expect. So let's listen to this one.
Okay, I guess that sounds pretty cozy. So what role does first name play?
Right. So in that case, for instance, I didn't use a question mark because it sounded better without a question mark. So, just go through and do that, and you can listen to your whole story right here within Expresso. Okay, and just remember that when you're done writing, but again, as I said, you'll get prompted, and you'll also, there's like an autosave feature, but you want to make sure that that your story is being saved to the database, and that should work out fine. So that's a quick overview. I'll come back in another video and show you more in detail how you use these interactive questions and how you can put those into your story to create more interactivity by adding these simple questions, and also by saving some of the responses and then reusing them. And when you move forward, ask like an additional question, or if you want to have something a little bit different based on what the listener responded previously. All right, so that's Expresso 101. I hope that helps, and talk to you soon.